Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Superman the Animated Series. So this series came out in 1996, and it lasted all the way to 2000 for 4 seasons, but most people just consider it 3 only because the 4th season only had 3 episodes. This is highly regarded as one of the best interpretations of Superman, if not the best. And honest to God, it really is the best version of Superman in terms of like animation and probably even live action, which I don't understand why the live actions don't try to adapt this series and stuff. In this series, Superman stands for everything Superman stands for: truth, justice, and well, the old-fashioned term was the American way, but most people don't use that term anymore. He was a true paradigm, a hero, like, a person you aspire to be. That is who Superman is. You're always supposed to aspire to be like, the best that you are, and this version did that a lot. He had that boyish charm, but he didn't have that persona of like his alter ego, like Clark Kent, that was like a bumbling idiot. This Clark Kent stood up straight. He didn't slouch. He was very confident, and he was just like, a boy's guy and everything. As opposed to how we saw him in the Christopher Reeves version, where he was slouched over and all this other stuff to hide his identity of being Superman. I like both versions. I like it when Clark is slunched over and act dorky, and I also like it when he's kind of more manly. But when he is more manly and confident, you can't help but to see the similarity between him and Superman. So how do people not see that? And so the whole glasses thing don't work for this version of Superman, because Clark, because he still looks like Superman. Whereas the Christopher Reeves version, who is slouched over, hunched over, like, glasses and, tripping over stuff, you really are taken back to be all like, nah, that can't be Superman. He's just too dorky and everything. And so, like, with this version, of course, the man himself, Bruce Timm, the Timmiest of them all, and Alan Burnett are the ones who created this series. And originally, this series wasn't even gonna happen. Steven Spielberg came to him and wanted him to come up with a brand new superhero character, which of course would be Freakazoid. I've never seen Freakazoid, and I never will. And Bruce Timm didn't want to do anything silly, goofy. He wanted something more straight laced and everything. And so this one woman, what is her name? Something McCurdy. McCurdy. She came to him be like, hey, want to make a Superman show? He's like, all right. Because he already did Batman the Animated Series, of course. And, of course, Batman the Animated Series was coming to an end. And then it was like, being made into the New Adventures of Batman. And it was on Kids WB, which is where the Superman show was on, the Kids WB. Now, of course, these two will cross over multiple times. And they will have that epic, like, world's finest movie that is amazing and stuff. And of course, Superman will also cross over into the Justice League animated series. When him and Batman were like prime members of that team, he also crossed over with that of Batman Beyond, The Call, which The Call was like, the template of the Justice League cartoon series. And he also crossed over with that of Static Shock. And so with this being on the Kids WB, halfway through like the series run, they decided to combine both Batman, the New Adventures, and the Superman series into the New Adventures of Batman and Superman. And I remember growing up around this time. I was in high school, but I never watched this show because my family didn't have cable at that time. When my family did get cable and stuff, this series had already came to an end. And you couldn't really find it nowhere except for reruns, but you couldn't but the kids WB really didn't have reruns of it. It was Toonami, however, when I was in college, late on Saturday nights, they would do like the Batman Superman Power Hour type thing. And there I finally got to watch this series. And I was really intrigued by like the animation style, the voice casting, and stuff like that. Because I had seen Justice League, and so with Justice League, I was used to what was his name, George Newborn voice as Superman, and the character designs there, and Lex being on there and stuff like that. And so when I watched this series, I was really taken aback by how the animation on this Superman was different from like the Justice League series, and like how Tim Daly voiced this Superman and stuff. And so, like, initially, when I first watched this show, I was kind of bored with it. Like, I wasn't that into it, like, say, Batman, the animated series and stuff. But, like, I still enjoyed it nevertheless. The first season, however, no matter what, the first season is a little boring to me at times, but the second season really started to kick up, especially with that of the third. The third is kind of like a hodgepodge of like him just like teaming up with other heroes and stuff. But like, the fourth season was really good. The second is really good. The first is good too. It's just, I don't know, sometimes it kind of just puts me to sleep sometimes. And because of his old style, like Bruce Timm used that really old classic deco type style, but he brightened this show up more than, of course, Batman the anime series that was really dark and drawn on black paper. I love the look and the vibe of like the city and the villains and the heroes and the costumes and stuff because Bruce Timm, like, he did a combination of the older school Superman stuff and like the newer stuff that was in like the comics and stuff because he had a difficult time actually coming up with the design of Superman and stuff. And I really do like that big puffy chest, the skinnier legs, like the thick head and everything. Like the hair like this just looks like a beefy Superman and stuff. He has these like, he doesn't have whites in his eyes, so it gives him that squint kind of look. So they did a really good job on like, combining different elements like the Joe Flasher, I think it's Joe Flasher, I think his name is, older cartoons. I remember those, man. I have one of those on VHS and I lost it when I was a kid, and oh man, that was such a cool cartoon and stuff. And it is quite a shame that when you see all this newer Superman stuff, they never try to adapt this. Now, of course, animation style, they have to be different from this version, but you would think in live action they would try to be more like this and stuff. Because I know, like, after this, of course, Justice League has Superman. And then when Superman Returns was coming out in theaters, they came up with the Legion of Superheroes where Superboy was in that, but he called himself Superman because they couldn't call each other, they couldn't call him Superboy because of licensing and stuff and copyright. But like that was more of a Legion of Superheroes show than Superman. And then many years later, like, of course we will see him in animated movies and stuff, but it wouldn't be until now, like around, what was it, 2023, we will have My Adventures of Superman, which I've already said I'm not a huge fan of that. It's okay, but it's just so drastically different and it's very influenced by like anime and stuff. And it's just like, because there haven't really been no solo Superman cartoons since like this series. So there's really only been three that I can think of, those old Flasher cartoons. Um, which was it kind of like, was it more like a movie type thing or was it just an actual series? I can't really remember. And of course, he was in Super Friends, but that's like a group thing. But there's only really been 3 solo Superman cartoon series and stuff. Also, I remember he was in Justice League Action and stuff, which I did not like that at all. But he has appeared in other like stuff, like the Batman, which was on Kids WB, and he was voiced by George once again. But like this right here is the definitive like Superman and stuff. And his villains, like this is really cool about his villains. They kept some of them kept their classic looks, where other ones were revamped, like Brainiac. And then you have Lex Luthor being completely different. It is shocking and surprising how Lex Luthor, while bad in a villain, yes, he wasn't the primary villain of this series. He actually, sometimes when he appears, he's not really doing nothing villainous, but then every once in a while, he'll only pop up in a couple of episodes per season, and he'll do something villainous. But he wasn't like the overall arcing villain like so many other like shows and movies had depicted him and stuff. And it's really interesting because like this version of Lex Luthor, yes, he is still a scientist, but he's not the mad scientist he was in the comics many years ago. They made him into more of a businessman and a corporate boss type dude who owns half of Metropolis because he's built half of Metropolis. This would be a version that will like trickle over into many of like the animated like many of the animated movies, no, actually they didn't really do that for the animated movies really. They kind of went old school with him then, but yeah, some of the animated movies, yeah, and a lot of the other animated series that will feature Superman and Lex, like the Harley Quinn show. Then of course there's Smallville in the live action movies and stuff, and it will have an effect on like the comics as well. And one interesting thing is people always assume this Lex Luthor is black, voiced by Clarence. What's his name? I forgot. Something. Clarence something. Clancy. I think it's Clarence Clancy. Is it something Clancy? I know. Oh man, I got a complete. Oh, Clarence Brown. That's it. I know it's something like Clancy Brown. Clancy Brown. And so, like, people always assume this Lex Luthor was black because he was so dark skinned and everything. And because those puffy lips, because puffy lips are normally given to, like, black characters. I thought that too. But Bruce Timm has literally said he just has, like, a tan. And he really does. Because when you put him next to other black people, he's not as dark as they are. And this one was just, like, I loved how, like, stone cold he was, that deep voice, like that stern nature. He wasn't silly or goofy like other versions. His face was actually based on Telly Savalas and everything, and it looks just like this dude. Like I really like this version of like Lex Luthor. And I love the more business scientist angle than just like mad scientist who wants to like destroy and kill the world. Which of course when we get to him in Justice League, he lost his company, he's dying, and now he's just a full-on supervillain and just trying to like, destroy everything, which yeah, I guess by that time he wanted to go old school with the character and stuff. And I still remember in the last episode, like the dude literally had kryptonite poison in a syringe to kill both Superman and Supergirl. Like that dude, that was some dark stuff. I really like this version of Lois Lane by Dana Delaney. Ironically, she's only 28 years old in the series. I thought she was much older than that because she looks older and she sounds older and stuff. And one cool thing about this series when it comes to that of Lois and Clark, I love how they changed up their clothes. That's very rare in animation because they just keep the same like outfits and color patterns and stuff like that. And so this Lois, while still being a damsel in distress but she wasn't a damsel in distress in every episode, and I love that because in other versions we've seen her and she's always putting herself in danger, always need to be saved and rescued. This is something they've been trying to get away from in the comics by letting her just be her own person, an investigative journalist, and that's what she was here. She was very headstrong, very stubborn, and like she didn't mush all over Superman. Like she didn't have Google eyes for him constantly. Yeah, she liked him and everything, but she wasn't just like falling over him like so many other versions and stuff. And she was really her own character, and I love that. And she didn't even appear in every episode. They really spaced her out so she wouldn't get too annoying. And there was like that monkey episode she had, was her own episode. I love the episode where she went to an alternate dimension, and she met a darker, evil Superman who's been corrupted by Lex Luthor and stuff. That's like one of my all-time favorite episodes. And I loved how in the finale she helped rescue Superman doing the whole reversal because they had him captive in like a government like prison and stuff. And there's never really been another like better version of Lois in animation. Like in Justice League, she was barely there because they wanted the side characters and stuff. Well, they wanted the recurring characters to be like side or supporting characters, I should say, to be like side characters. And I hate the one that's in My Adventures of Superman. I really love this version of like Supergirl. I love her look. I love the alternate costume that they gave from one of the alternate like universes and like the comics and stuff. I love Nicole Tom as the voice. She's everything Supergirl is supposed to be. She's girly, she's grumpy, she wants to punch her way through stuff, she like disobeys orders and everything. And that's why one of the reasons like the Supergirl show didn't do her justice, because they tried to make Supergirl into Superman, into Clark Kent and stuff. And that's not who she is. But this version is just like great. But they didn't want her to be from Krypton because they wanted Superman to be the only person. So they had her on like a sister planet, and they say, she might be his cousin, but they don't really know. And so like, she, of course, was introduced at the end of season 2, which those 2 episodes weren't even supposed to happen, but cause it was only supposed to have 26, but they gave them 28 instead. And so they made like the Supergirls episode, but she didn't really appear that much afterwards. Because after she initially appeared, she later went on to cross over into the Batman series with Batgirl. And then she had just like one kind of solo episode about unity and everything, which of course is like a body snatcher type like episode where it's an alien and they attach themselves to like a human and make them do their bidding. We've seen that a million times before. Faculty was like that. There was a Buffy episode with eggs like that. And then of course she was in the finale because Superman was off world and she had all his robots like pretending to be them instead of going out doing stuff herself. And she kept up the charade pretty good until Lex figured it out. And then of course when Superman came to the planet, she tried to have to fight him, but Luthor and Hardcastle basically nuked them with like a kryptonite missile and everything, and it took her completely out, broke her arm, and had her like in a coma and stuff. Jimmy Olsen, of course, is in this too, and he's just like goofy Jimmy, but not too goofy. Like he's just like a nice kid type person, and they gave him his mullet. But they even did the whole pal of Superman thing in like the third season, where it's like people assume like he's like best friends with Superman and it gets him in a whole lot of trouble, but he's not really Superman's pal. He's more of Lois' pal because he's always with her. Now, of course, there's Superman, the man himself, voiced by Tim Daly. He has a very stoic, boyish charm to his voice that's kind of quiet but manly at the same time. The first 3 episodes are like You know, his like the first episode is kind of like an origin of him being like a teenager, and then him moving to Metropolis, being Superman, and who's already Superman, all this other stuff. And he really does embody every characteristic that Superman is supposed to have. He saves people, he's kind, he doesn't go around killing people. He will save people no matter what. And he always looks like, you know, the best optimistic view for like people, even though people don't like deserve that and stuff. He treats everybody with respect, as long as they need to be treated with respect. If they're like a villain, then he doesn't. But he's always there to like help people and stuff. One of his best episodes, like I said, was the alternate version where we can see a dark Superman. But another better episode is, you know, the one where Clark Kent is presumed dead, and Superman is just doing his Superman stuff, and he even has to go back to like, you know, the farm, and he tells his parents, you know, like he can't stay Superman 24/7. He'll go mad if he doesn't have like some off time being Clark and everything. Because Clark is really who he wants to be and everything. Because because he didn't even really know he was an alien at first when he went down to like, you know, the planet and stuff. And that was such a cool episode. Like, you know, and I remember there was that one where the Legion showed up and they met like a teenage Superboy, and that was really cool. And Lana gets to appear in a couple of episodes, and how he just doesn't like Lex Luthor and always assume that Lex is always up to no good. But even Clark himself will stand up to Lex, which this is what makes this version of Clark an actual manly dude, you know? I don't understand how Lex never figured it out. He can figure out other like things and stuff. And even like villains who are terrible, like Maxima and everything, he helps redeem her by like teaching her like, you know, to be like a better queen to her subjects and like other stuff. It's even to the point where they have their version of like Zod, because they didn't bring in the real Zod for whatever bizarre reason. But like, you know, he tries to help them at first to where they're all like, you know what, maybe we should just conquer this world. And he has to like fight them and everything like that. Now, one bizarre thing that they did with this version is they depowered him big time. He can't even lift a mountain. He can't lift a mountain like he can do in the comics. He can't even lift a truck without struggling and everything. Like they really depowered him, even his like cold breath and stuff like that. And electricity just takes this dude out. And of course, when you get in the Justice League series, he's taken out left and right in those first two seasons. But Justice League Unlimited, they really powered him back up like he's supposed to be in the comics. And this is because Bruce Timm figured, you know, well, a lot of his characters that are super powered, well, if they have the powers they do in the comics, then there's no need for like a Justice League, and there's no need, like, the battle will be over within a couple of seconds, which makes total sense. But at that same time, you don't want to see them struggling and everything, you know? And that's one thing this Superman did. This Superman really was a man who was super, as opposed to a Superman and stuff. He couldn't even fly in outer space without like a suit, or breathe underwater without a suit. And he had to rely on Star Labs for like everything and stuff. But like in the end, he still made for a really cool character. Emil Hamilton is that of Superman's confidant. He is a scientist who works at Star Labs, and he builds every scientific thing that Superman needs to help him fight crime. He builds like exosuits for him to go underwater or say in outer space, because, you know, they depowered this Superman where he can't breathe in space and stuff. He helped rebuild that of his spaceship. He created a phantom zone projector and everything for Superman, but their friendship turns that of sour in the final episodes when, like, you know, Superman got brainwashed and Emil assumed that Superman was just truly evil. This will trickle over into that of the Justice League animated series. I like the addition of Turban and I forget her name, the female detective cop lady. Like they were really cool and a cool asset to that of Superman. So it's like it's nice to have like recurring characters that aren't super powered and are just normal and regular and still try to fight the good fight. They weren't like in every episode, but when they appeared, they always had a good presence to them. Maggie Sawyer, that's her name. I couldn't think of it before, but it finally rung in my head. I forget this dude's name. It's like Bippo or something like that. The dockhand guy who like does I think like cargo ships or whatever. Like, he's kind of like this almost like an informant almost of Superman, but kind of not. And it's like, Clark Kent or sometimes Lois will like, ask for information and somehow he'll always know. And he's like a huge Superman fan and stuff. And, like it's just a tiny, tiny recurring little character. But it was really cool to see him appear in the Justice League series where he like, defended Superman when people was like turning on him. Now, one thing this series did that Batman the animated series never did is that they brought in other heroes. They brought in Dr. Fate, the Flash, Green Lantern, the Kyle Rayner version. They brought in Aquaman. They brought in Steel. Like, and they had their own solo episodes, and it was really cool to see him cross over with other people because you rarely get to see that, and you don't see that in live action. Oh, now you do, but you didn't in the past. And even in live action TV shows that just don't happen and stuff. So it was really cool that they did that, and it really helped shape the way for like other animated series and animated movies and live action TV shows where they're all like, what, we can incorporate other heroes and it won't take away from the main hero and stuff. Now, like I said before, the World Finest movie kind of kicked off this series where he partnered with that of Batman, and Lex Luthor and the Joker partnered together and they had to take them on. I'll talk more about that movie in its own video because it deserves its own video, but that was such a great movie and stuff. Batman and Robin appear in this series a couple of times, Batman more than that of Robin. And it was really cool to see Batman and Superman like, team up and do stuff together. There was that Ra's al Ghul episode when he stole Superman's powers. There was that episode where Brainiac kidnapped Bruce Wayne and he had to partner with Robin. And so Superman dressed up as Batman. And you really can't tell the difference between their faces when Bruce Wayne and that of like Clark Kent and stuff. But Clark has a bigger chin and more poofier hair. Some of their villains they did completely like redone, like Brainiac. Because I think Bruce Timm said he didn't like the older version of Brainiac from the older comics. That was like a clue in, and like, the black outfit that he wore with the green skin and this and that. So this time they made him an AI version of a Kryptonian computer that went rogue and helped destroy like Krypton and stuff. And so they put him in this kind of like retro robot type suit. And, he destroyed like, worlds, and he got crash landed on Earth. And he's pretty much just like stayed there for like ever and ever. But we've seen in Justice League, he has like duplicates and this and that. But what's really interesting is how this show ties in so perfectly with the Justice League Unlimited series. Because they went back in Justice League Unlimited with all their like plot holes and things left like up in the air that never resolved, and they finished them out in that series. Like when Brainiac blasted Lex and nothing happened to Lex other than him just getting knocked down, but it turned out he uploaded his program within him and stuff. Because, Lex, like, was held captive by Brainiac because he was trying to get off, like, the planet and this and that. And, like, how, like, Hardcastle and Lex, tried to stop Superman. Superman tried to destroy the world because Darkseid, like, corrupted him and stuff like that. And, it had a lasting effect on, like, the Justice League series and stuff. And that's just so cool that they was finally able to finish out like their storylines and this and that. Mr. Mixa Spitlico, however the heck you say his name, he was such a cool villain. And I loved how Superman always got the best of him in that first episode. Like, you have to say his name, you have to say it like backwards. And Superman, it was like weird. Superman was so smart. He was able to come up with such genius ways, like on the spot, of how to get rid of this dude and plan out his next attack by getting him to like say his name or spell out his name or interpret his name. And like it was like the most simplistic episode ever, but it was like one of the best because it really shows Superman's like brain capability other than him just punching his way through everything. The Parasite episode was never really my fave. I like the look and design of this dude. After what happened to him, like he has that weird looking suit that looks like skin. But he's always just there to absorb like Superman's powers. But then they try to do more interesting things with him because like what is he really going to keep doing in every other episode other than drain Superman of his powers? And so they had him team up with like other villains. People try to use him trying to redeem himself, this and that. I just never really vibed with that character. And I don't like other versions of him either because it's just, they always make him this big blob looking thing. And I just never really dug him as like a villain. I'm very shocked and surprised at how much time Metallo got in this series. He was really cool with his British sounding accent. Like, like Lex put that thing in him that caused him to like deteriorate. And so Lex put his consciousness in like a robot. And of course, Kryptonite was the only thing that powered it. And what's kind of like the whole Parasite thing is kind of like what this dude gonna do in other episodes. But they found clever ways that kept bringing him back. Like him losing his memory and then trying to turn good, but then turn evil again. And him, fighting John Henry Irons and stuff. And they always kept bringing this dude back in more and more interesting ways. And this has always been my favorite version of Metallo. Because, like, every other version, like in live action, he sucks so much. They had him in the Superboy show, Smallville, Supergirl, and it's just always one terrible version after like another, especially the one in Smallville, man. Like Brian Austin Green, he forgot how to act. But even in animated movies where he looks more cooler, he's just not that cool. He was cool in The Batman. But other than that, this has always been the cooler version. But I don't understand something. After he got his flesh ripped off him, we see him the next time as like a full body robot. But then all of a sudden, the next time we see him, he has some of his flesh back on him, but still in that ripped thing. So like, why did he sew that back on himself? I don't get that. Volcana was another villain that they created for this show, and she's all right, nothing too fancy about her. That's why she doesn't really appear in like no other episode. She just has like really long hair, but like she was in the Justice League animated series for one episode. It's just, she was experimented on with a bunch of other people and and it's just, I don't know, man. It's just, she never really vibed with me as like a villain like Livewire did. Livewire was cool. She was a grumpy disc jockey who was overweight, but as soon as she got her power, she became skinny. I don't understand that. But we know Bruce Timm loves drawing hot women. And sometimes he went a little too far in this series, like when Lois, like Superman flew, Clark transformed into Superman into Daily Planet and flew out the window next to Lois and Perry. And by the way, how did they not know it wasn't him? But anyway, her dress flies up in a Marilyn Monroe kind of way, and she has to like hold it down, like having this cutesy looking look on her face in a shocked kind of pose. And it's just like, sometimes Bruce Timm needs to tone it down. I hope to God this man never gets Me Too'd or anything like that. Because you kind of got that suspicious feeling there might be something. But I hope to God not. Because he's Bruce Timm. And people just love this dude, This series also pulled a Harley Quinn when they created their own characters for like this show, Livewire. There is Mercy Graves, who has been in other animated series, animated movies. She's been in live action TV and live action movies, but still has not been done as good as this version. The one in Old Titans was okay. At least she had like something to actually do, as opposed to Batman v Superman, where she's just there and she blows up. I assumed they was gonna do something with her, but they didn't. But this version, she started off as Lex's chauffeur and bodyguard, and she's just mean, man. She will kick the snot out of you. She has a slight good side to her, but it's only slight. But it's also shown that those two were lovers in Justice League, the animated series, and she takes over the company only to give it back to him. The Lobo episode, Main Man. Like, oh my god, dude, that's like one of my favorite episodes. This version is still the coolest Lobo I've ever seen. The voice actor did an amazing job. He was just wild, crazy, did whatever he wanted. Blew stuff up to get Superman's attention, like blew his own planet up and everything. Like, it was just insane. And it's cool how this episode like trickle over into Batman Beyond with the call, with the whole Starro cameo and everything, and the Collector. Toyman was a very unique villain to that of Superman. He was the man with dwarfism, and you never knew what his real face looked like because it was hidden under like a doll mask. And it was kind of creepy and terrifying. And this like Toyman was just so villainous and creepy. That's something they always have to do with every version they create, because Toyman is so silly and goofy looking, depending on what design you give him. So normally in every adaptation they have him very sinister. This version of Bizarro was interesting. He was a Superman clone created by Lex Luthor, but then his genetics started to break down to where he looks the way he does now. Ironically, he had Superman's original suit, but then when his DNA broke down, the suit somehow just transformed into kind of like this purplish blue Mutatone type color and a different S on the symbol. That's never ever been explained. Now, Zod never appears in this, but there's an alternate version of Zod and a woman named Ursula. I don't know why they weren't allowed to bring Zod in, but, they brought in this other dude, and it was cool to see him fight against other Kryptonians because he thought, oh, hey, we can be the same and everything. But they're like, nah, we gotta rule this planet, man. And then, of course, they later reappeared in the third season to where, like, they conquered this one planet and they plan on invading Earth and everything. And of course, there's Darkseid. I can not talk about Darkseid, like the Jack Kirby, version of him, where he's just this man, but to his people, he is a god, and he's one of the scariest, intimidating characters ever. No matter if it's live action, except for Smallville. The Smallville, oh my god, they ruined Darkseid so much. But in the live action Justice League, Zack Snyder movie, and other animated movies and stuff, this dude is terrifying. Even I feel terrified of this guy. I know he's fake and everything, because you never know what's gonna cause him to laser beam you and kill your behind and stuff. Those Omega beams, he would just shoot them out, just the smallest little thing that'll piss him off and everything. And because everybody's just so terrified of him. And, when he finds out about Superman, the anti-life equation he's looking for, and Superman won't join him, and that pisses him off. And so he just does the most, terrible things to Superman, like brainwashing the dude and causing him to commit an act of terror on the entire planet of Earth, which later trickled over into the Justice League series where people still didn't trust him and stuff. Emil Hamilton was terrified of Superman after that, to where he joined Canvas and everything. Michael Ironside had such an intimidating voice to him, and he killed Turpin and everything. I was so shocked and surprised by that. Like, 'cause this is like, a kid show, and they show that dude get vaporized and everything. And he just straight up died. And then, of course, in the finale, Superman beat the snot out of him to where his face was oozing with like yellow blood and everything like that. But then there comes the funeral scene for Dan Turpin, which was altered. See, in the original version on the left, you have a lot of Jack Kirby's like famous characters he created on the left. But because this is not Marvel and this is DC, they weren't allowed to use them. So on the right side, this is the alternate version for like the DVDs and stuff. But thankfully for HBO Max and the Blu-ray, they've now restored the original. Now, this wouldn't be the last time we would see this version of Superman. He later went on to that of the Justice League animated series, where it was a much older Superman. In the first 2 seasons, he was constantly getting his butt kicked and taking out like the fight. That's because Bruce Timm said that, if Superman can get taken out, then this must mean it's a real threat for that of the Justice League. By Justice League Unlimited, they changed all that and made Superman the super type person that he is. And they also redesigned his appearance again because in the first 2 seasons, he looked a bit older because they wanted to show that time has passed since the animated series. But, they decided to give him more of that youthful look and everything in the Unlimited series. However, the Unlimited series would have never ever happened if it wasn't for Batman Beyond. Well, technically, Justice League, not Unlimited, but you know what I mean. Because Superman and the futuristic Justice League appear in the episode of Batman Beyond in a two-parter, which was an amazing episode with a huge, huge, huge twist that goes all the way back to that Lobo episode in Superman, the animated series. He also appeared in Static Shock because the rest of the Justice League appeared in Static Shock except for that of Wonder Woman. And so everybody's kind of like, oh, well, where's Superman at? Well, he appeared with Toyman and stuff. Now, when it comes to this show, like I said before, it lasted for 4 seasons. The first season was 13. The next was like 28, and then the third was 10, and the last was 3. Ironically, this show has never gotten a proper movie, not a proper theatrical or direct to DVD movie and stuff. And I know what you're saying. That Brainiac Superman movie, it has to be a movie connected to this universe, right? No. It has the same art style, but it's not set in the same continuity because in this version, Superman meets Brainiac for the very first time. And, we know he met Brainiac back in season 1 and everything. So this movie is its own complete, unique thing, similar to Batman, The Mystery of the Batwoman and stuff, where they use the same templates, but they just, they'll either keep some of the same voice people or change them up. They change Lex voice, they change Mercy's, they change Brainiac, and maybe Jimmy, I'm not sure. But it's an amazing movie and you should check it out. Now, as good as this show was, there was something that got it canceled. And I remember when I was in college, I was hanging out with a friend, and she was hanging out with one of her friends, and he was from another town, and he was talking about how he hates Pokemon and how he hates anime. And I'm all like, why? See, I never watched Pokemon. I watched Digimon. So I didn't understand why he hated it so much. And he said because Pokemon is the reason why the Superman and Batman cartoon series got canceled. And it's true. See, anime was starting to come over to the West like never before and actually shown more on broadcast television as opposed to syndicated television and stuff. And when those young kids started watching anime, it blew up to the point where American cartoons just became like nothing. And so this show got canceled. Now, of course, you can watch this on HBO Max or you can get it on DVD or Blu-ray. And it's a really, really, really good classic cartoon series that you never hear nobody talk about no more. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.